This campaign is brought to you by befm, 부산영어방송.
Are you a small business owner with innovative ideas or technology? We're here to help your business grow. The Korea Broadcasting Advertising Corporation, KOBACO, is providing financial assistance of up to 9 million won for local small business owners to produce and broadcast on-air advertisements. Applications are open from June 19th until July the 4th at 4 p.m. Visit the KOBACO website for details. We ask for participation and interest from small business owners.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
This early summer weather has a lot of kids and even adults heading out for ice cream. But you're bound to have noticed that nearly all ice cream stores in your neighborhood have gone automatic with self-checkout kiosks guarded by surveillance cameras. This was one of the big shifts brought on by the pandemic, and these unmanned stores, well, they have their downsides, especially security vulnerabilities. But owners say that the amount they save on wages, that outweighs the drawbacks. So is this a new niche market, or is this ultimately where the service industry is headed? That's the big question. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Tuesday, June 20th on befm, 부산영어방송. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all surviving the heat. And today we're talking about something that's probably really related to all of you. It's all about the service industry. And if you've ever worked in the service industry, you know how tough it can be. And apparently, things don't get easier, even if you dispatch robots to do your job and deal with customers. So unmanned retail stores with self-checkout kiosks, they're popping up left and right as owners try to cut down on costs. So, they're kind of maintaining this whole contactless system. However, unruly customer behavior is being noted throughout these unmanned stores. One unmanned cafe owner reported a customer who charged his personal mobility wheel for an hour and a half after buying one iced Americano. And others complain that their stores have become kind of the prime hangout spot for teenagers who climb onto for example, the ice cream freezers, and they leave trash behind. But it's not all terrible. There is a story of one child in Daejeon who bought some candy at a self-checkout store and found that the kiosk wasn't working properly. They proceeded to put the cash and a handwritten note on the machine and then kind of wave to the camera before heading out. And by the way, the kiosk in that store was broken because someone, seemingly an adult, smashed it with a golf club. So, a bit of the human touch might have disappeared with these self-checkout stores becoming more common, but that doesn't mean that customers should, get rid of etiquette or just, humanity. What do you think? Well, here's a text topic for today. When you're at a store or maybe even a fast food restaurant and there is a choice, assuming you have a choice, do you prefer self-checkout or a person to help you with your transaction? 요즘 키오스크나 무인 점포가 많잖아요. 여러분은 혼자서 조용히 계산하는 무인 기계를 선호하시는지 혹은 아직 사람과 직접 대면하는 방법을 좋아하시는지 문자 보내주시고 you can let me know via our BEFM 부산영어방송 live stream live chat on YouTube pound 9050 that'll cost you 101 Kakao Talk on our BEFM channel as well. Let's look ahead to our morning together. So this is what we have for you. We have Andrew with Sports Insider. Roberto for Curate Busan. For our special interview, we're going to be focusing on the first climate action case to go on trial in the United States. And this is a big issue because everything we talk about is seemingly linked to the climate these days. Stay tuned for that. I'll be back with today's headlines. The time is now 7:04. These are today's headlines. Yoon arrives in France to promote Expo bid. President Yoon Suk-yeol arrived in France on Monday local time to promote South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan, the first leg of a two-nation tour that will later take him to Vietnam. Government to exclude killer questions from college entrance exam. The government will exclude extremely difficult killer questions from the annual college entrance exam starting this year in an effort to reduce private education expenses, the presidential office said yesterday. Crypto fugitive Do Kwon sentenced to 4 months in prison in Montenegro. A Montenegro court yesterday sentenced Do Kwon, the co-founder of Terraform Labs, and one of his aides to 4 months in prison on charges of using fake passports. Xi and Blinken agreed to stabilize U.S.-China relations in Beijing talks. China and the United States agreed on Monday local time to stabilize their intense rivalry so it does not veer into conflict, but failed to produce any major breakthrough during a rare visit to Beijing by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Submarine exploring Titanic wreck missing and rescue efforts underway. The U.S. Coast Guard launched a search and rescue operation for a submersible with 5 people on board that went missing during an expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic in the North Atlantic Ocean. These are today's headlines. This is Can't Stop Lovin' You by Van Halen.
There's a time and place for everything, for everyone. We can push with all our might, but nothing's gonna come. Oh no, nothing's gonna change. And if I ask you not to try, oh, could you let it be? I wanna hold you and say we can throw this all away. Tell me you won't go, you won't go. Do you have to hear me say I can't stop loving you? And no matter what I say or do, you know my heart is true. Oh, I can't stop loving you. You can change your friends, your place in life. You can change your mind. We can change the things we say and do anytime. Oh no, but I think you'll find that when you look inside your heart, oh baby, I'll be there. Yeah, hold on. I'm holding on, baby. Just come on, come on, come on. I just wanna hear you say I
it's time for Busan Updates. So we have Annie, our BFM writer and newscaster for BFM here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing well.
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hot, is it not? It's like really definitely summer, right?
Yeah. Well, today's a little bit better.
Hey, I need to ask you a text topic. So we're talking about self-checkout, counters versus paying for things, getting that person-to-person interaction. What do you prefer?
I think I lean more towards the kiosks.
The kiosk.
Or like the automatic payment systems, especially at like grocery stores. I was trying to think about it and I'm like, it's not that I'm opposed to the person-to-person interaction.
Sure.
It's just quicker. Because I can click everything I want, send it away, and I'm good.
Ooh, the convenience.
Yeah.
I totally get it. Well, thanks for letting us know. Let's jump into our first update. This is regarding festivals and traditional markets. Some have come under fire recently for overcharging their visitors. We've talked about this. Busan's municipalities are trying their best to prevent this ahead of beach season.
Right. So with all 7 beaches officially opening in just about 10 days, preparations are underway, and that's including price controls. So Suyang District, which is home to 광안리, is also running a reporting center on the beach for visitors to report any potential overcharging or excessive prices. They will also crack down on illegal vacation rentals as well as restaurants that do not properly post their prices.
Sure.
And then Hyundai District said that it is running a price management inspection team up until August 31st. So they are going to focus on parking fees and beach equipment stores. They also have designated the 300-meter perimeter of the beach as a clean food zone and are cracking down against any excessive customer luring activities.
I see. And actually, to that end, Hyundai District announced that it's going to revise the profit structure of the parasol rental companies on the beach.
Right. So Hyundai District announced that it is going to reduce the profit margin of these parasol rental companies by raising their beach sanitation contribution. So based on these companies' tax reports, they recorded 1.5 billion won in sales, which is the highest on record, and each company made about 5 million to 30 million won.
Okay.
But these parasol rentals are supposed to serve a public purpose, and these profits are excessive for these public services. Therefore, they are going to take a higher percentage in beach cleanup fees from these companies from the current 30% up to 40%. Of course, the companies are against this, saying that the high profits last year were temporary and exceptional from the quarantine restrictions easing and there being no major typhoons during the summer months.
I see. Well, thanks for letting us know about that. Next up, Busan's education authorities are launching a reconciliation committee to handle school violence.
Right. So the Education Office is launching a school violence reconciliation committee today. This will be a mediation body comprised of 47 individuals who are from the education sector, religious groups, as well as journalists. They seek to find educational solutions across all parts of school violence cases. That's including how schools deal with such cases, under all the goal of zero school violence. They will seek solutions based on recovery and reconciliation to resolve conflict and frustrations that might arise from the current system. And the education system hopes that this will form a system whereby the authorities can seek an education and constructive solutions.
Yes, because we definitely want our students and children to be able to focus on, getting along and, of course, their studies and not worry about things like this. All right, today is the big day, the 4th presentation at the BIE for the 2030 Busan World Expo bid.
Right, it's a big day for Busan, and President Yoon Suk-yeol as well as the South Korean delegation are over in Paris right now.
Yes.
Preparing for the 4th presentation in front of the BIE General Assembly. And this is expected to be a watershed moment ahead of the vote that's coming up in November, as all 179 member nations will be in attendance today. And the 3 candidate nations are firing at all cylinders. President Yoon Suk-yeol is going to be the final speaker for Korea's presentation, which will also feature Psy, as well as footage from sopranos Jo Soo-mi and K-pop star Karina from aespa. With President Yoon Suk-yeol's attention to the presentation, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will also attend, and Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will also visit Paris. The president will host an official reception tomorrow and meet with President Emmanuel Macron for a summit. There are also various events taking place around Paris to showcase Korean culture. So that ranges from traditional culture to K-pop, Korean food, K-films, and much, much more.
Ah, yes. We got to make the best use of our soft power. That's
Definitely.
our biggest asset. You know, actually, those of us here can take part to boost support for the presentation, I hear.
Yeah, so we can lend our support to Team Korea's presentation by watching it live, as public support is one of the biggest criteria in this.
Yes.
So the presentation will take place at 3:35 p.m. today, local time, which is, 3:35 p.m. Tuesday local time in Paris.
Yes.
Which is 10:35 p.m. here in Korea. And actually, there is an event on Gwanghwali Beach tonight so that we can all gather around together to cheer on the presentation.
Okay.
So the event is the Beach Radio Expo 2030 campaign, which starts at 8:30 tonight for just a symbolic edition. The city will set up a huge viewing screen on the beach for people to watch the presentation together. There will also be a DJ on the scene talking about the meaning of the 2030 World Expo and also share stories submitted ahead of time. There will be bands performing as well as some quizzes. And there will also be another citizen cheer event over at the Songsangyang Square starting at 9 p.m. tonight.
Right. And the reason why it's at 8:30, because military time, it's 20:30.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even
There's
think about
extra
that.
meaning behind that. Well, thank you, Annie, for that. And for you, the listeners, we are talking about choices. Every day, there are choices to be made. So when you're at a store and you have a choice, whether it's at a fast food restaurant or you're buying something at a store, what do you prefer? The self-checkout kiosk or person-to-person interaction, meaning someone actually scanning it for you and asking for your credit card and whatnot. So, 여러분 요즘 키오스크나 무인 점포가 많죠. 여러분은 혼자서 조용히 계산하시는 무인 기계를 선호하시는지 혹은 아직 사람과 직접 대면하는 방법을 좋아하시는지 알려주시고 I'm going to hand it over to Annie for traffic and weather.
Good morning, everyone, and here's your traffic and weather for this hour. So first, there is news of an accident over on the Gyeongbu Expressway that's heading toward Seoul near the Nopo intersection, so please drive safe in that area. And elsewhere, traffic is building up, notably on Chungnyeol-daero from Naesong intersection to Dongdae intersection. Also on Byeongno, that's heading out of the city near Wondong interchange, and likewise on Taedong from Hwamyang Bridge to Hwamyangdong. And if we switch over to the weather has cooled down a bit with current temperatures averaging 20 degrees Celsius and afternoon highs expected to reach 26 degrees Celsius. So the sun is shining this morning. However, clouds are expected to roll in late afternoon before rain begins falling around 9 p.m. tonight. And UV levels are high throughout the day. So again, please don't forget your sun care. That's all for now. See you in the second hour.
Check this out.
This is Morning Wave Busan.
Everybody, wait a minute.
This is Morning Wave.
Morning Wave.
You are listening to
Morning Wave.
Morning Wave in Busan.
What show is this?
This is Morning Wave in Busan.
Here we go. Morning Wave in Busan.
It's now time for News Digest. We have Haley in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Haley, I'm going to ask you for a big favor. Can you show just a little bit of the can you stand up?
Can here, listen, viewers,
Yeah,
can you see
viewers.
me? We match.
We matched today, so I just wanted to put that out. Our producer is just looking at us like with that. Oh my gosh, did you just do that? Yes, we
These
do.
two. Yeah.
Because
we're matching.
we are both ESTJ.
We share the same brain.
Yes.
It seems sometimes.
All right. So, kiosk or in-person, cashier helping you out with
I mean,
transactions.
as the resident too much talker of BFM, I will always prefer human-to-human interactions. And then the reason I kind of chose this question was because I was shocked last year when my sister, who's kind of in a different generation than I am, she was like, I always go to kiosks. And I'm like, what?
You're like,
What? And
are we in the same family?
And then her reason was so she wouldn't have to talk to anyone. And I was like, oh, you're adopted. For sure. Yeah.
So it's true. Your mother found her under a bridge. Huh?
Yeah, definitely. Or one of us.
Yes. Maybe it's you. Well, our top story right now, it's all over the country. The debate over the difficulty level of the CSAT. So Sunung, the presidential office is not backing down on its crusade after these so-called killer questions, right?
Right. So according to the latest statement from the presidential office, the office will send out a unified message that eliminating the so-called killer questions from the Sunung CSATs, it is key to the private education problem.
Yes.
So it is the president as well as the office's firm belief that even after they remove these questions, as long as the test creation process is highly technical and the test creators take great lengths, their wording, the exam will be fair. The president said that these extremely difficult questions are just, quote, playing around with our children. And the office is also focusing on the so-called interest cartel of private education that apparently profit from these hard questions. So it does recognize the necessity of private education for students that they do need catch up. They see the widespread private education sector as a problem. And to boot, the official from the ruling party said that the president has apparently in-depth knowledge into this so-called cartel of corruption as he handled the Choguk Family College admissions case as a prosecutor. And also while the president was serving as a prosecutor, he apparently reviewed CSAT questions every single year and therefore has an expert level knowledge on the matter.
I see. Well, what did the education ministry say on this very hot issue?
Right. So the ruling party and the government held a meeting yesterday on this matter, and they announced that the education ministry will follow the administration's policy of these fair CSATs in slow phases, but also surely and certainly. The education minister added that having a fair exam doesn't necessarily equal to an easy exam.
Right.
And he also apologized that while the president did point out the problems in the Sunung system early on, the education ministry was stuck in a rut and didn't handle the matter well. And he apologized as the head of the education ministry. And to that end, the head of the Korea Institute of Curriculum and Evaluation, Lee Kyu-min, resigned yesterday, taking responsibility for the June's mock test and its perceived difficulty level. And he also apologized to the students and the parents. And actually, he was appointed to office last March, and his term was set to expire at the end of February of 2025. So this is the second high-ranking education official that resigned over the issue.
Yes. Well, everyone would probably agree that reducing the country's overdependency on private education is important and beneficial in the long run. However, there's a big but. How realistic is this?
So basically, until now, no administration has been successful in reducing the huge private education market.
Yes.
So according to Statistics Korea and Education Ministry, the annual private education fees for overall in the country, when record-taking first began in 2007, it was a 20.4 trillion won market. As of last year, it has gone up by 30% to a 25.9 trillion won market.
Oh.
And the amount that a single student, so one student spends on private education every month on average, that has nearly doubled from 220,000 won back in 2007 to 410,000 won per month last year. And of course, we are looking at the short-term cost of COVID-19 and remote classes, having and students having to resort to private classes, but also we can kind of take a longer view at failed government policies.
Well, those in the education industry say that the government's 수능 policies have not been very effective in curbing private education. But I want to look at this. Is this true?
Right. According to numbers, that seems to be the prevailing opinion among experts.
Okay.
So we usually, the link between EBS coverage and 수능 questions is often seen as how public the coverage is.
Yes.
So for instance, back in 2011, the government raised the EBS's 수능 over coverage rate to 70%. So that means 70% of what came on the CSATs was something that was dealt with by the public education broadcasting system. And that is a drastic increase from the previous 30 to 50%.
Oh.
Initially, it did have a small impact when this happened in decreasing private education. However, just after 3 years, people kind of went right back to spending more on private education. And during these years, there were no major changes noted for high school students.
Sure.
And even the major change of not grading English on a curve, it didn't really have a notable impact on private education fees.
And why is that?
So experts say that just changing 수능 policies alone, it is scratching the surface of a much bigger issue. Fundamentally, their reasoning is that the reason the private education industry is such a booming one is because of this strict hierarchy of universities.
Yes.
And according to a Justice Party's policy committee member Song Kyung-won, private education spending is like military spending. You are not just satisfied at having reached your own goal if the country next to you or, and in his wording, the kid next to you gets a higher grade, then the families go right back into spending more. This is very much competitive and relative.
Yes. This is such a tough issue because, as a parent, you always want your kid to do well, but at what cost? That is the
Absolutely.
question, right?
Right.
All right. Well, we're going to leave that story there for now. Next, let's talk about the Minister of Economy explicitly saying that ramen prices should be lower.
Right. So in an interview over the weekend, the
Yes.
Vice Prime Minister and the Economy Minister, Chu Kyung-ho, he pointed right at the ramen industry and said they should lower their prices. So he stated that ramen prices went up by quite a bit last September and October, but compared to those times, the price of wheat, the base ingredient for ramen, it went down by 50%. And he stated that then he hopes corporations will lower their prices accordingly. So just to give you a look into what he's talking about, so a year ago, international wheat prices came to $419 per ton, and that's now down to $228 per ton, which is down by about 45%. And that led to, back last year, major ramen manufacturers raising their prices by an average of 11%, and that was the highest margin of increase since the global financial crisis of 2009.
And the thing is, I remember we even covered this extensively.
Right.
Here on Morning Wave in Busan, and we were very supportive even of the at least understanding of the manufacturers raising their prices. Well, what is the ramen manufacturers' side on this as of now?
Right. So major companies say that they have not received an official request from the government, but some are looking into ways to lower the burden of rising consumer prices within this year. Although note that they didn't specifically say that they're going to lower prices.
Yes.
Because some are of the position that this is basically indirect pressure from the government into the private sector, saying that, yes, ramen has this reputation for being kind of like the affordable meal for everyday people.
Sure.
But that also seems to make them a target. And regarding overall inflation, the Vice Prime Minister Chu stated that whilst prices are stabilizing slowly and overall and projected a 2% inflation rate within at least this month or next month by latest.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on this because I don't know if you've looked at ramen prices lately.
Everything prices.
They're so expensive.
They're up,
right.
yeah.
All right, next, we have reported on the Uganda school attack whereby Islamic State, ISIS-related rebels killed dozens of students. So any updates on this story?
Right. So a manhunt is underway in Uganda for rebels from the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, which has pledged allegiance to Islamic State or ISIS.
Yes.
And I do have to give our listeners a trigger warning that some of the details that I will talk about, they are very distressing. And we have some photos up on our .tube streaming. So 5 militants, they stormed a secondary school in western Uganda on Friday local time, and they set fire to the dorms and apparently used machetes to kill students.
Yes.
And according to the country's authorities, they have recovered bodies of 41 people, including 38 students. They were burned, shot, or even maimed to death, and at least 6 students have been abducted, and the rebels have fled to the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh, goodness. So apparently there is criticism, though, that the authorities, they just haven't done enough against these ADF fighters.
Right. So because ADF activities have been escalating not only in Uganda, but for quite past few years in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So last week, suspected ADF fighters, they attacked a village in the Democratic Republic of Congo near the border. And the border is said to be quite vast and, quote, porous, meaning it isn't all that secure.
Yes.
And also ADF is responsible for Uganda's deadliest attack back in 1998, where 80 students were burned to death. And experts say that the group often targets schools as a way of, number one, recruiting children, and secondly, for shock value.
Oh, that's so terrible. We've often talked about ISIS, but tell us more about ADF and the background for the creation of this group.
Right, because, at first glance, a lot of listeners in Korea wouldn't connect ISIS to this particular region in Africa, but they have actually been expanding their, at least, affiliate influence. So ADF itself, it was an independent group created in Western Uganda in the 90s, and they took up arms against a long-serving president, Yoweri Museveni, and they were alleging the government of persecuting Muslims. So Muslims make up nearly 14% to 35% of the population, depending on what figures we're looking at.
Okay.
But some people do say that they face discrimination in the public sphere, in work, and in education. So this group fled Uganda after they were defeated by the army, and they found a home in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they have taken on a more kind of a global jihadist mission. So the group's leader back in 2016 pledged allegiance to ISIS. And while ISIS has mostly been defeated, especially in the Middle East, there has been a growing influence in Africa that we've been seeing in these affiliates like ADF.
I see. Well, thanks for explaining more about this group and, of course, the update on that Uganda story. We'll check in with you in hour number 2, so take care in the meantime. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right. Well, here is our next song. So is it this one? This is 피곤하다 by No. Sorry. It's Emotions by Mariah Carey. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that song. Today, we're talking about unmanned self-checkout stores. So, we just talked about the different types of unruly and even sometimes criminal behavior, things that happen when people think no one is watching. And the number of such stores increased by 5 times in the last 10 years, and that's according to the Fair Trade Commission, the FTC. But the number of thefts, they also were on the rise, with an average of 13 cases reported per day. But if the security holes are so big, why are these stores so popular? Well, it's all about the cost-benefit analysis for the owners. In the last 3 years, minimum wage has gone up by 15%, and so more and more business owners are choosing to go solo. The number of business owners who run their own stores without any help is actually the highest it's been since the global financial crisis in 2008. And as a discussion over next year's minimum wage as well as a differentiated wage system by industry is ongoing, these self-checkout stores may only increase. And that takes us to our text topic. When you're at a store or a fast food restaurant and there is a choice, on one hand, there is the self-checkout kiosk, or you can stand in line and have this person-to-person interaction. Which do you prefer? 네, 요즘 키오스크가 많잖아요. 무인 점포도 많고요. 여러분은 혼자서 조용히 계산하는 무인 기계를 선호하시는지 혹은 사람과 직접 대면하는 방법을 좋아하시는지 알려주시면 I'll be back with hot clip in just a moment. For today's hot clip, I want to focus on what happened actually last week. I'm talking about that terrible boat that sank in the Mediterranean. So here's the latest on that story.
Europe's Commissioner for Home Affairs says the migrant boat disaster off the Greek coast is the worst tragedy ever in the Mediterranean Sea. Ylva Johansson said European nations must find ways to fight smugglers who are sending people to their deaths. Her comments come as the search continues for the missing. 78 people are confirmed dead, but up to 750 people were on the vessel when it sank on Wednesday, and hundreds are feared dead. Greek authorities are denying claims that the ship capsized after the Coast Guard tried to tow it to shore, and as survivors grapple with the disaster.
With every passing hour, it's becoming more likely that hundreds more people now lie buried in the deep blue waters of the Ionian Sea. The search and rescue operation has been extended, but there is little hope of finding anyone else alive. In the Greek capital, Athens, hope has turned to anger and mourning to blame. The question many here want answered: how could this happen with the Coast Guard so nearby?
We are deeply shocked by the shipwreck, with dozens dead and hundreds missing in Pylos. This is not just another accident, this is a predestined crime.
Criticism has been mounting after it became known that a Greek patrol boat escorted the fishing trawler for hours but didn't intervene. The Coast Guard's defense: the vessel was moving steadily towards Italy and refused almost all assistance. An investigation has been launched into the tragedy, which comes just over a week after the European Union agreed to a long overdue reform of the bloc's migrant and asylum rules. The deal will allow member states to fast-track asylum procedures on the EU's external borders and more easily send refused asylum seekers to so-called safe countries outside the bloc.
A historic moment with member states finally agreeing a way forward on migration. But that historic moment has been overshadowed by yet another shipwreck in the Mediterranean.
Those are 2 clips from CNN and DW. And unfortunately, we have covered these types of stories before of these migrant boats that have sunken, that so many people have died from. And the thing is, there's always a question of who is responsible. Is it the country of origin where these boats left? Or is it the country where the boat is in international waters, but closest to. In this case, a lot of blame being put on the Greek Coast Guard, as supposedly they were there. It's so hard to pinpoint the blame. And the thing is, the news outlets say 78 or 79 people have died. But in reality, they have not been able to retrieve all the bodies at this point. It's going to be into the hundreds. And that's why it's being called maybe the worst disaster in the Mediterranean. This was your hot clip for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
Hey, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
Sports Insider.
Yeah,
You're here.
right here, inside the studio.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Yes.
It's great. It's beautiful. I don't know what I walked into coming into the studio, but it's a bit of, I don't know how we can say.
So I got to explain this because I did explain to some of our viewers watching on YouTube.
Okay.
What happened is my producer, she usually, we have a cue sheet, everybody, right? Cue sheet real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, and it tells you ahead of time, like, oh, she's planning on playing this song by whom, right?
Sure.
And then once in a while, due to time or if there's a song request on her screen, she types in, a song and then an artist name, right?
Oh, okay, yeah,
and then,
for sure.
So I always check to my right just in case there's a song change. I look to my right and it was highlighted in my defense. It was highlighted. She had highlighted it, but she was referring to Haley and me saying, "Oh, we're so 피곤해 because we're ESTJ
Oh,
or
so you
MBTI."
said that was the name of the song?
Yeah, I thought the song was 피곤해 by
너무 피곤해.
너무
by
피곤해.
Joe
너무
PD.
피곤해. Yeah, by Joe
By Joe
PD.
PD.
She was telling us she's so 피곤해 because of us, but yes.
Amazing.
She's saying we're 피곤해 style, but
that's what
yes.
I chalk that up for being for our listeners who know that this is live. Things like that happen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it just never happened.
And on certain programs, it happens a little more than others. And
This is the
we
first
just
time it's
roll.
happened here.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, there's
So-
a first time for everything.
Fact checking. Someone
Yes.
go back and get that. So, all right. Well, we're going to get things going here. I know you want to talk about some soccer, but we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yes.
We're going to start today with our insider report. Usually, well, for the past few weeks, I've had this at the end of the segment. But I feel today is something very special. That we should start with it. And this is about the amazing world event that got underway on Sunday night. That is the 2023 Special Olympics World Games being held in Berlin. Officially opened on Sunday night in Germany. And we're going to get to a clip here that kind of will get us into things.
Okay.
Compete together. Win together. Be unbeatable together. Berlin invites you to the Special Olympics World Games 2023. The world's largest sports event for people with intellectual disabilities.
A sizable contingent here from Korea, referred to as South Korea. It is one of 8 countries in Special Olympics East Asia region, all of which are represented here at Berlin 2023. Now, South Korea hosted the 2013 Special Olympics World Winter Games and 5 years later hosted the Olympic and the Paralympic Games. The Korean squad took part in the Unified Cup in Detroit last summer, and they enter as one of the medal favorites in soccer. 7 aside.
So we need some clarifications. That was a great intro,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But for our listeners who might not fully understand, 'cause it is a little confusing. We have some terms like Special Olympics, and then we have we call the Olympics or Olympic Games, and then we have the Paralympics, right?
Yes.
So can you kind of break it down?
Yeah, so those clips, they're from ESPN and NBC in the U.S., and they have great coverage as well. You can go on NoTube and get a lot of stuff from them and replays and whatnot.
Sure.
So you can check that out yourselves. So, yeah, there is, a lot of people, you hear the names, you think, most people understand the Olympics and what the Olympics are, the elite competition in the world and what it is. There are a lot of people who kind of mix up the Special Olympics and the Paralympics. And I'll throw my hand up for that. At one point in my life, I did as well. I wasn't really sure what they were. Now, the mission statement here for the Special Olympics is to provide year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, giving them continuing opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in a sharing of gifts, skills, and friendship with their families, other Special Olympics athletes, and the communities. And this is something that, they've really stayed true to as well. And I think there's something to highlight here. It's for children and adults.
Right.
Where to be an Olympian, it's definitely a lifelong journey. And for a lot of these Olympians as well, it is, but it's a little bit different how the infrastructure is set up for the Special Olympics.
Sure.
Now, the Special Olympics is, and we heard in the clip, is solely for athletes with intellectual disabilities or also cognitive delay and things like that. So when you look at the Paralympics, this focuses more on physical disabilities. Now, that's not to say individuals competing in the Special Olympics might not have both. They could have intellectual and physical disabilities.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so that could be there could be an athlete that has both of those competing in the Special Olympics, but not really in the Paralympics, all right?
Got it.
Now, the Olympics and the Paralympics are about elite competition and specialization, and the athletes compete in Olympic and the Paralympic Games once every 4 years in their sport. Now, this also happens in the Special Olympics. It's every 2 years.
Yes.
But same, the winter and
Summer.
the summer. So
Got
every
it.
other year there is, an event. So this is the first since 2019 because of the pandemic.
Right.
And, compared to the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, sometimes I don't want to say the funding might not be as there, but the world stage sometimes isn't as available. So, but yeah, it is, it's quite the event.
So I'm curious now, and by the way, thank you for breaking it down because it can be confusing.
Definitely.
So now we know Special Olympics, mainly it's about people with intellectual disabilities. But in regards to nations and the number of athletes, how many will be attending the games in Berlin?
Now, this is something I think might surprise a lot of people because these numbers, in my opinion, are quite staggering in the sense that there's more than 7,000 athletes.
Really?
It's unbelievable.
Okay.
I didn't know it was that high either.
Okay.
From over 175 nations. They'll compete in 26 different sports. And the way that the disciplines are broken down, it is also on intellectual ability so that it's fairness across the board is the name of the game here.
They try to be as fair as possible.
Exactly, all right? Whereas if you look at the Olympic Games, you might finish 123rd in your sport, and there's probably no chance that you'd ever finish first kind of thing, all right?
Okay.
And one of the most important things here, and I really want to highlight, is that for any of these events, there's no possibility they'd be able to be run without the volunteers.
So important.
And in this case, there's over 20,000 volunteers helping make sure that the athletes have everything they need and that all of the sports run smoothly. So, hats off to everybody in Berlin and in Germany. And there's volunteers who come in from all over the world for this.
Yes.
And to make sure that the athletes and the participants have everything they need. So
I love this.
apparently Korea is one of the medal favorites, as we heard in the clip for the soccer 7-a-side. And hopefully I can bring some updates next week when we have some possibly some medals in the bag, we'll say.
Well, I love that you're covering this. I mean, competitive elite sports, that's really fun and exciting. And we talk about that a lot. But the fact that you're highlighting this.
No, it's fantastic.
Thanks for doing so.
Yes.
All right, let's move on, though.
Yeah, so moving on from something very positive to something we thought was coming, but we weren't exactly sure. Chinese public security authorities have placed South Korean midfielder Son Joon-ho under formal arrest on bribery charges following the extradition expiration of his detention period.
Yes.
A source said on Sunday. Now, Sun, who plays for the Shandong Taishan in the Chinese Super League, has been held in the Liaoning province since mid-May on what Chinese officials have said that they're bribery charges.
Yes.
Again, we're not really privy to much more information than
There's
that.
no details.
The public authorities who have been investigating Son have received approval for his arrest from the prosecution. The switch to an investigation under arrest means that the public security authorities have begun taking formal legal steps against Son Juno. Now, and this is also something that it's not going to be finished in a day or two. This could take months.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they could drag this on for as long as they want.
True. And so any official statements from the Korea Football Association, the KFA, or even Jurgen Klinsmann, who is now the team manager?
Yeah, so yesterday prior to their match that will take place this evening,
Yes.
There was a press conference, and he said, we all feel for Juno. We all pray for him and his family, that the situation gets resolved as quickly as possible. We hope that we get him back as soon as possible. Then Captain Son Heung-min was also in the press conference.
Yes.
He said, we've always been in touch, and now even I send him texts, he does not respond. He said, it breaks my heart, and we don't really know exactly what's going on.
Yes.
There's nothing we can do but, pray for him and his family. I hope he can rejoin us as soon as possible. And I think that is for everybody here and anybody who has any connection
Yes.
to Son Junho or the KFA, it's just give us something. If there is evidence of it,
Give us,
let us know something or what might have gone down.
Right.
Where it's just, and I understand if there is an investigation, you can't divulge so much. But you have to, I don't know. I just feel for him, feel for his family. Soccer is second in this.
Of course.
His safety and his family are first.
Human
and,
story comes
just
first,
needs some-
always.
yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
last Friday night, there was a game here in Korea, and you attended.
Korea
How was
lost.
this?
But
They
it was
did
so
lose.
exciting. I really didn't care about the score or the scoreboard because, Korea lost 1-0 to Peru. And I have to say, my seats were right next to the Peruvian fans.
Yes.
It was so loud and exciting.
Yeah, I had
a
some
lot of
friends. I have
fun.
some Peruvian friends who were
They
there.
it was fun. It was so exciting. Since we're running out of time, there's another match tonight though
Yes.
against El Salvador, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately for the fans that were here in Busan, Son Heung-min didn't play. He was
But he
recovering.
waved to me.
Yeah, he was recovering
As he
from surgery.
Was making his way.
But apparently he
Yes.
will play tonight.
Yes.
We don't know how many minutes he'll play.
He's not going to start.
He's probably not going to start.
Right.
Might come on towards the end of the game and see how things go. But again, it is how he feels during warm-ups and things like that. But lots of changes again. Hopefully the fans are patient is all I can say.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. We'll check in with you next week.
Have a good one.
All right, here it is. That Old Black Magic by The Green Book.
That old black magic has me in its spell. That old black magic that to you weaves so well. Those icy fingers up and down my spine. The same old witchcraft when your eyes meet mine. I love them so, yeah. That same old tingle that I feel inside. And then that elevator starts its ride. And darling, down and down I go, round and round I go, like a leaf that's caught in a tide. Yeah, I should stay away, but what can I do? I hear your name, and I'm aflame, oh, aflame with such a burning desire. Hey, that only your kiss can put out the fire. Well, now you're the lover I have waited for. You're the mate that fate had me created for.
지글지글 움직인대.
누가?
if we get the World Expo, it'll really put Busan on a global map.
세계 박람회가 어울리는 도시, 미래를 향한 힘찬 도약. 부산에서 출발한 파도는 이미 세계를 향해 뻗어 나가고 있습니다. 2030 부산 세계 박람회. 부산이 시작하고 대한민국이 함께 이뤄갑니다. 이 캠페인은 지역과 함께하는 든든한 동반자, BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
저희 중소기업은 광고비가 제일 부담되죠.
코바코에서 TV, 라디오 광고비 지원받으세요.
혁신형 중소기업 방송광고 지원 제도로 광고비 70% 할인이나 250% 보너스 광고 지원.
코바코로 문의하세요. 051-751-0400.
SNS 매너가 무너진 세상. SNS 매너 권법을 익혀라. 조상권. 타인의 얼굴을 보호하는 스티커 매너. 저작권. 합법적인 음원 체크. 영화 작품 유료 폰트 등을 함부로 쓰지 않는 매너. 상표권. 상표 대용 판매는 불법. 비매너. 이것이 SNS 고수의 매너 권법. 매너를 지켜야 SNS가 즐거워요. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
It's morning.
And what a lovely morning.
Dynamic Busan.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Shelby.
What show is this?
Hello.
Hello, baby.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, everybody. Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now 8 o'clock. This is News Highlights. Yoon arrives in France to promote Expo bid. President Yoon Suk-yeol arrived in France on Monday local time to promote South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan, the first leg of a two-nation tour that will later take him to Vietnam. Yoon will attend a General Assembly of the BIE, the international body in charge of overseeing the World Expo, on Tuesday and Wednesday, with an English speech planned for South Korea's presentation the first day. From Paris, Yoon will travel to Vietnam on Thursday for a 3-day state visit. He will hold a summit with the Vietnamese president on Friday. Government to exclude killer questions from college entrance exam. The government will exclude extremely difficult killer questions from the annual college entrance exam starting this year in an effort to reduce private education expenses, the presidential office said yesterday. The state-administered college scholastic ability test, CSAT, known as Sunung in Korean, has faced criticism for including difficult questions that many say students without tutoring from private cram schools known as hagwons in Korean are unable to solve. In recent years, the CSATs have featured several of these so-called killer questions, some of which are based on university curricula, allowing the private education sector to profit significantly by providing strategies to solve such questions. Crypto fugitive Do Kwon sentenced to 4 months in prison in Montenegro. Do Kwon, 32, who was behind cryptocurrencies that suffered a multi-billion-dollar crash last year, and his chief financial officer were arrested at Puerto Rico airport on March 23rd after attempting to travel to Dubai with forged passports. The basic court announced on its website that it handed 4-month prison terms to both. They denied the charges during previous hearings. Earlier this month, the court granted bail to both on the condition that they each pay 400,000 euros in bail money and are placed in confinement under police surveillance. Xi and Blinken agreed to stabilize U.S.-China relations in Beijing talks. China and the United States agreed on Monday local time to stabilize their intense rivalry so it does not veer into conflict, but failed to produce any major breakthrough during a rare visit to Beijing by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The top U.S. diplomat and Xi both stressed the importance of having a more stable relationship, as any conflict between the world's two largest economies would create global disruption. U.S. President Joe Biden said later on Monday he thinks relations between the two countries are on the right path, but he did not think progress was made during Blinken's trip. Submarine exploring Titanic wreck missing rescue efforts underway. The U.S. Coast Guard launched a search and rescue operation for a submersible with 5 people on board that went missing during an expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic in the North Atlantic Ocean. The military branch received a phone call on Sunday local time informing them the Canadian research ship Polar Prince had lost contact with the underwater vessel and were overdue on checking with their communications, according to the Coast Guard spokesperson. The missing submersible lost contact an hour and 45 minutes into its descent, the Coast Guard said. These are news highlights. This is Issue Waglwagle, and we have Haley back in the studio.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning again.
Yes. Well, our first issue that we're going to cover, this is regarding the police launching a probe into an elderly woman with Alzheimer's who turned up with a bloody face after she went missing for a few hours.
Right. So the Gyeonggi Yangju police are looking into a case of an elderly woman who turned up with a bloody face. So according to an online post written by the woman's granddaughter, her grandmother, who's in her 80s, she suffers from Alzheimer's and she's under the care of the family. So she went to the doctors with her son, but she kind of wandered outside the clinic while her son was under treatment. And the family called the police and they found her about 6 hours later, but she was in a really horrible state with a bloody face, a black eye, and bruises behind her neck.
Oh my goodness. Do they know what happened to her?
Right. So what we know so far is that she was found about 6 kilometers away from where she went missing. And so that's about 2 hours of walking distance.
Yes.
And local business people actually called her in and said that she had a bloody nose when they found her and she passed out. And like I said, she also had bruises on her eye and on the back of her neck. So at first, the police and first responders said that they think she sustained these injuries from a fall. And there was CCTV footage that showed her falling. However, upon inspection, the family and some of the netizens even say that they don't think the injuries could have come from just falling.
Okay.
And so the families have also asked for anyone with knowledge to report it to the police, and they're currently tracing the movements via surveillance footage. And by the way, under the Elder Protection Act, people, average citizens, we also have a duty to report any senior citizens who may have dementia or Alzheimer's who have been separated from their family or guardians. And the police say that the number of Alzheimer's patients who have gone missing, that number has been on the rise from just a little over 10,000 back in 2019 to 14,000 last year. And if you have the emergency alerts on your phone, you sometimes get those, so-and-so in height, weight, they're kind of wandering around a certain neighborhood. So please be on the lookout if you get those messages in your area.
Well, I hope they find out what exactly happened to her. Yes. All right, next up, a dad who just returned from paternity leave has been assigned hundreds of kilometers away from his home?
Right, and this apparently took place in Busan. So a man working for a large corporation's branch in Busan, he took paternity leave last year, and when he returned from his leave, he found out that the company reassigned him to the headquarters in Seoul.
Oh.
So he has 2 kids, and according to interviews that he gave to the media, his wife doesn't really speak Korean all that well, so he really couldn't so going to Seoul and working there was not an option.
Right.
So he had to quit and he filed a complaint to the Labor Ministry.
And what did the Labor Ministry say about this case?
This is also what's interesting. They didn't find that the company broke any laws by assigning him to Seoul.
Okay.
So apparently, according to the ministry, of the 213 employees of that company who took paternity leave in the past 3 years, 123 people went back to their original post, but 29 others were assigned elsewhere. So they're saying that he wasn't an extraordinary case. And according to a KBS report, during that same period, there were 30 people who left the company after they took paternity leave, and now I think he makes 31.
What does the law actually say about this?
Right, because it is kind of puzzling. So our company is just allowed to post you elsewhere. So under the Gender Equality Hiring Act, when an employee returns to work after parental leave, the employer must assign him or her to the same post or a post that will pay similar wages. So there's stipulation about how much money they get, but there's nothing that says where they can be redirected to.
Right, but and then people wonder why more men don't take paternity leave. I'm just saying.
Ultimately, why the birth rate is so low. Right.
Well, let's move on for now. This summer is shaping up to be one of the hottest on record. It's like we're a broken record. We're saying it again. But the thing is, it's already taken a toll already. That's where we're saying it again.
Right. So now we're going to take a look at India, where nearly 170 people have died in just the past 2 days in 2 states. So these are very populous states, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar.
Yes.
So this band of the country that stretches from the northwest to the southwest region, it's under scorching heat waves. So the reason for that is the monsoon, which is supposed to come right now, has been delayed this year, and that has led to temperatures to linger way above the normal levels. So temperatures in Uttar Pradesh late last week was lingering around 45 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And authorities found out that most of the people who passed away were over 60 years old, and they had pre-existing health conditions, and these may have been exacerbated by the heat. And officials say most of the admitted patients are also over 60 or older. They're exhibiting symptoms of high fever, vomiting, diarrhea, breathing difficulties, and even heart-related issues.
Right, and there are extensive infrastructural issues as well, though.
Right, so because of the heat, some parts of the region are all under blackouts that have lasted over 12 hours. So this, of course, they cannot turn on any cooling equipment. So there were even protests outside power stations in certain regions. One protester said that his wife was forced to sleep in the car over the weekend with the air conditioning so the baby wouldn't get sick. And the main summer months in India, which are April, May, and June, they're usually the hottest before the monsoon season brings cooler temperatures with the rain. However, because of the delayed monsoon, temperatures have become more intense, but not just now, in the past decade. This is a part of a climate change we're seeing. So during the heat waves, the country usually suffers severe water shortages with tens of millions of people under lack of running water.
Yes. So very terrible to hear about. But the thing is, like, in terms of like hot summers, it's not just going to be in India.
Right. So it's kind of a precursor to what we may be seeing soon.
Yes, yes. All right. Lastly, let's talk about Lionel Messi. Social media posts from Saudi Arabia. They have many clamoring about how much he got paid for that photo.
Right. So, there was this whole talk about whether Messi was going to go and play for Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Well, he ultimately chose Major League Soccer, U.S., Inter Miami, and Florida. But his connection to Saudi doesn't end here. And I'm citing a New York Times report, so a very reputable source.
Yes.
Messi allegedly signed a very lucrative deal with Saudi Arabia's tourism authority, and that was back in 2021. So he could, under this deal, receive up to $25 million over 3 years as a tourism ambassador.
Wow.
And that includes photos of him on social media, as we have on our TUE page from his Instagram, and his family in various spots across the country with the hashtag Visit Saudi. So according to the contract, this is very specific. He gets paid $2 million to take one annual family vacation for 5 days or 2 annual vacations of 3 days each. And the government pays for like all 7-star hotels for Messi and up to 20 family and friends.
Can we go?
I know. Can we be friends? Well,
sorry, that just popped out. Okay.
The report also says that Messi's banned from saying anything that may, quote, tarnish the country, which is obviously a clause that was created in reference to the country's poor human rights records and reputation.
Right.
And this also explains the scandal back in May where he visited Saudi Arabia during the season and he was disciplined by the PSG, Paris Saint-Germain authorities. So fans are very critical of this because, and then even on the post that we showed you on his May 2022 post, calling him, quote, a sellout, and that he turned his back on women and LGBTQ communities.
But the thing is, this is not the first instance of Saudi Arabia using sports to revamp its image. We've talked about it before.
Right.
Sports washing.
This is called sports washing, where countries use sports to improve a country's image or reputation. I mean, Qatar, for instance, during the World Cup, they were criticized of this.
Right.
But Saudi Arabia, this has kind of become their tool, of course, with Live Golf merging with the PGA Tour recently. Also, you know, in colloquial terms, the Saudi government has been kind of throwing money at the problem.
Yes.
It has, you know, it has hired Cristiano Ronaldo and the French soccer player Karim Benzema. They also own an English Premier League team. So definitely as Saudi kind of tries to move away from the oil industry and, into the international community, this might not be the last occurrence of this we see.
And breaking news, this is just a rumor, but it's being reported on by ESPN and other kind of
reputable sources.
Yeah, saying that a Saudi club is ready to bid a lot of money for Son Heung-min as well. Because he has 2 years left on his Tottenham contract, right? I'm not saying he's going, so don't quote me. I'm just saying if you go on the internet and look at all the sports reports, they're preparing a bid, this particular team.
Right.
It's the same team as Benzema.
I see.
We'll see what happens. This is the transfer season. Well, thank you. We'll check in with you tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Everybody, this was Haley. And for now, though, I'm going to hand it over to Annie to get the latest in terms of traffic and weather.
Good morning again. It is currently 8:15 a.m. and here's your weather and traffic. So the roads are busy yet again with congestion on 중앙대로 from 소정천 Junction to Bugok intersection. Also on 충렬대로 from Minam intersection to Mandok Tunnel number 2. Likewise on 수영로 from KBS Junction to Daenam intersection. And also on 관문대로 from Pangnam Tunnel to Baekyang Tunnel. Everyone, please drive safe. Jumping over to the weather, the sun is shining this morning and current temperatures have gone up 2 degrees, up to average 22 degrees Celsius. Afternoon highs are again expected to reach 26 degrees Celsius today, and UV levels will be high throughout the day, even when the clouds roll in late afternoon, so take care to do proper sun care. Also, rain will fall tonight around 9 p.m., so definitely plan accordingly. That's all for now. Let's hand it back to Catherine.
This is Mr. Blue Sky by Electric Light Orchestra.
Sun is shining in the sky. There ain't a cloud in sight. It stopped raining. Everybody's in the lake. And don't you know, it's a beautiful new day. Hey, running down the avenue. See how the sun shines bright. sky. Please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue, there's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, there's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky. Mr. Blue, you get it right, but soon comes Mr. Night, creeping over. Now his hand is on your shoulder. Never mind, I remember you this way. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
All right, listeners, it's time for a text topic. When you're at a store or at, for example, a fast food restaurant and you do have a choice, do you prefer using the self-checkout kiosk, or do you prefer ordering or, scanning things, or, working with a person, like in-person, person-to-person interaction, maybe standing online, going to the cashier, paying for your products? That is the question for today. And there actually is quite a divide. Some people, for example, 조현철님 on our Kakao Talk board saying, 저는 아직까지는 키오스크보다는 일하시는 분이랑 이야기해서 계산하는 게 편해요. For me personally, they say, instead of using a kiosk, it's still more comfortable to interact with a person, with a cashier. So that's one person's take. We also have Bonnie Neem who says, good morning. It's a little cooler than yesterday. I like face-to-face interaction because sometimes I want to get information on what to buy or eat. So that's her takes. In her opinion. Also, we have other people like Jay Beanim on our NutTube chat saying, I prefer self-checkout if such a system is available. Still, so many stores are using a hybrid system, and I believe that, saving on manpower might go to improvement in quality. 오겹살 조아님 says, 저도 키오스크가 편하긴 해요. 예전만큼 빠릿빠릿하지 못할 때는 좀 슬픕니다. I do prefer kiosks, this 오겹살 조아님 says. However, when I realize I'm not as quick or fast as I used to be, it makes me a little sad. As for me, I used to be kiosk challenge. It was more of a language issue for me, and I used to have beads of sweat, coming down my face, especially as people were lined up behind me. And then I would always go, "Oh, you go first. 먼저 하세요, 먼저 하세요." And then finally I would go. And then now that I've kind of figured it out, I think the kiosk thing is fine. However, if I do have questions, I do stand in line and go to the cashier or ask a person. So for me, it's kind of half and half right now. All right, I'll be back with our special interview. In a historic moment, the first constitutional climate trial is taking place in Montana. That's in the United States. Youth plaintiffs are challenging the state's reliance on fossil fuels, claiming it violates their right to a clean environment. The thing is that, climate change, this is such a hot topic. Climate lawsuits are not limited to just the United States, but apparently they're taking place around the globe. Let's find out what's going on. We have invited Patrick Parenteau, who is Emeritus Professor of Law and Senior Fellow for Climate Policy in the Environmental Law Center and Graduate School at the Vermont Law School. So let's find out more from him. Hi, Professor. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Busan.
Yes, Professor. So first of all, maybe we can get some of the basics out of the way. If you can explain what a climate lawsuit is first.
So it's a lawsuit seeking remedies to address the climate crisis. The lawsuits are filed against government entities, oftentimes trying to get the government to do more to transition our energy and our transportation systems to cleaner, carbon-free technologies. And some of the lawsuits are against the fossil fuel industry itself, and those cases are seeking compensation for some of the damages that are already occurring, of course, from climate change, and that includes fires and droughts and heat and all the rest of that. And then some of these cases are seeking planning for adaptation, because we're already at a point where we're beyond being able to escape the effects of climate change. What we're trying to do is to minimize, of course, the harm that could ensue if we don't take action. But in the meantime, we're going to need to adapt lots of different systems to protect us from storms and floods and sea level rise and things like that. So a wide variety of lawsuits.
Yes. Thanks for explaining. Well, can we talk about this particular trial that's happening in Montana? Why is this trial unique when we compare it to other previous climate-related lawsuits? Can you explain the significance of this particular case?
Right. So this is alleging, as you've already indicated, that the state of Montana's energy policies are depriving the youth plaintiffs of the right, a constitutional right under the Montana state constitution, to a healthy environment, and more specifically, a climate system capable of sustaining human life. That's the way they have framed the nature of this constitutional right. So this is the first case in the United States where we're actually going to have a trial. It's underway right now. We're in week 2 of the trial, scheduled to end this week, at which climate scientists and engineers and economists and psychologists and doctors, all manner of experts, are testifying about the dangers and the already impacts of climate change and what the state is doing and not doing to deal with it. So this is a big deal for us in the United States, because our court systems here have been reluctant to get involved in these cases trying to seek remedies for climate change. So this is a breakthrough for these youthful plaintiffs.
And when we talk about, you mentioned it on at the beginning too, also, Professor, this term remedies. What are we talking about? I mean, this isn't just about, oh, you need to pay up. They're asking for policy changes. Is that what they're asking for?
Yes, in fact, they're saying we want to see a plan to transition away from our current dependence on fossil fuels. You see, Montana, being a western state, is a source of a lot of coal. It has enormous amounts of coal in the ground, plus oil and gas. And those are the two drivers of climate change. And the state is so dependent on these fossil fuels that it has no plan for moving to a different form of economic development that will use alternative technologies to produce energy, to transport people and goods around the state and elsewhere. And so the plaintiffs, the useful plaintiffs, are actually seeking fundamental changes in the state's policies. The case itself at this juncture is just seeking a declaration that they have a right to a safe climate. And then the question will be, what happens after that? So for now, we're just trying to get a determination from a court that the state is in violation of the state constitution.
Yes. Well, in terms of testimony, I assume that there are going to be experts that are that have to go testify on the stand. What impact do you think that these expert testimonies will have? I mean, do you think that for people who still might be on the fence in terms of fossil fuels contributing to climate change, that, you know, there are still people who are hesitant to make that connection for whatever reason, that, this will have any sway whatsoever?
I think for people with an open mind who are undecided about not only whether climate change is happening, but also how dangerous is it? How imminent is the threat to individuals right now? And for those people that are willing to listen to experts and weigh the evidence that's coming out at the trial, I think it's going to have it should have a significant impact, because the people that are being called to testify are some of the finest scientists and experts you can find, and they're independent. They're not being hired at the behest of any particular interest. They're donating their time to this trial. And of course, they'll be subject to cross-examination. That's the whole point of a trial, after all, to get at the truth. So instead of just, mouthing words about what the nature of the threat is, this will be testimony under oath and subject to rigorous cross-examination. So the record that will come from this case will be an historic document. It will lay out in black and white just exactly what's happening, and also, importantly, what we can do right now to avoid some of the worst consequences.
Well, I also do want to talk about the defense. The defense are arguing that this case is "quote unquote" meritless publicity stunt. What's your take on this claim? I mean, obviously, the defense lawyers, it's their duty also to defend their client. So what do you say on this?
Yeah, I think that's a very poor example of a defense. Name calling never gets you anywhere. Frankly, the judge has already considered their argument that these claims lack merit and has dismissed them repeatedly. They've tried several times to get the case tossed out of court, and they've failed. So the idea that it's meritless has been rejected already by the court. The argument that they're really trying to make is, well, Montana is just one state, and its contribution of carbon pollution to the atmosphere is too small to make any difference. And the judge has also rejected that as a preliminary matter. Now, she's going to have a full trial on this, but the idea that any one state or country even can say, well, we're not really primarily or even substantially responsible. You see, that kind of logic leads to where we are, which is nobody doing what's needed to be done. Every contributor of carbon pollution has what we call a fair share responsibility. So Montana doesn't bear the full responsibility for solving the problem, obviously, but they do bear a responsibility for taking action that they can control themselves over sources of the pollution. That's really what this case is about.
Well, do you think that if the plaintiffs do succeed, if they do win this lawsuit, that we will see some broader changes in terms of policies, or do you think that this will just be kind of, unfortunately, maybe a drop in the bucket that we'll see a couple of headlines and then, it's going to disappear?
Well, I think it will make a difference. There are other cases pending, and one in Hawaii and another one in Pennsylvania, and they are also seeking declarations that their state constitutions have a right to a healthy environment and a safe climate. So, a victory in the Montana case could have a ripple effect in some other cases. We don't know what will happen immediately in Montana. The politics of Montana are not in a place right now where you're going to see immediate changes. But, the thing about this problem is every ton matters. Every fraction of every degree increase in global temperatures matters. And time is of the essence. So, you have to just keep trying to convince the opinion leaders and the politicians that are making these decisions that they need to act. In some ways, the youth are showing more maturity and more foresight than their adults in this case. So hopefully the adults will get the message and do what's right.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on air with us and thoroughly discussing this case with our listeners. We appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes, everybody, this was our special interview with Professor Patrick Parenteau, and we talked about this case, youth plaintiffs taking it up to the Montana State Constitutional Court. And of course, we're going to wait to see what happens in this case to see if there are real ripple effects. As a professor mentioned, there are ongoing cases in Hawaii and Pennsylvania as well. So very important to know what happens here in Montana. All right, we are actually going to take a song break right now, take a little breather. So here it is. This is I Won't Give Up by Jason Mraz.
When I look into your eyes, it's like watching the night sky or a beautiful sunrise. Oh, there's so much they hold, and just like them old
stars. I see that you've come so far to be right where you are. How old is your soul? Well, I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up. And when you're needing your space to do some navigating, I'll be here patiently waiting to see what you find. 'Cause even the stars, they burn. Some even fall to the earth. We got a lot to learn. God knows we're worth it. No, I won't give up. I don't want to be someone who walks away so easily. I'm here to stay and make the difference that I can make. Our differences, they do a lot to teach us how to use the tools and gifts we got here. We got a lot at stake. And in the end, you're still my friend. At least we did intend for us to work. We didn't break, we didn't burn. We had to learn how to bend without the world caving in. I had to learn what I got and what I'm not and who I am. I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up, still looking up. Well, I won't give up on us. God knows I'm tough. He knows we got a lot to learn. God knows we're worth it. I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up.
You're now listening to the world's most reliable morning show, Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Text in to BEFM # 9050 for 101. You can also reach us for free through our YouTube live stream or on Kakao Talk. Begin your morning with Catherine, and don't forget to reboot your day after lunch. Stay tuned for Steve Hatherley Reboot every day from 2 to 4 p.m.
Catherine,
Yeah,
how are you?
we're thinking like you're awfully tall today, sitting on that booster seat. Yeah,
I didn't know I was on a booster seat. I thought this is very comfortable.
That's Haley's 전용 booster, only for Haley. All right, well, this is Curate Booster. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. How about yourself?
Pretty good. I wanted to ask your text topic.
Yes.
Are you more of a kiosk man, or are you? Do you like interacting with people and going through the traditional route of paying with a person, cashier, a person?
Well, I think I grew into the kiosk system these days because I think that it gives me a chance to get my own selection.
Oh.
So if I'm in front of a person, maybe they feel like I have to rush.
Okay.
So maybe other people might feel the opposite. Like if you're in the queue, they feel I got to rush because people waiting behind me.
Yeah, especially when they're like selling like hurry up, that.
But when I'm in the kiosk, I feel like there's so many options. So I think that
interesting.
These days I prefer the kiosk.
Okay, well, Good to know.
No, nobody judged me on my on my orders.
Let Roberto take his time. He wants his options.
I want to see what's out there. So
right. Well, I'm curious. Do you have like a Spanish phrase or sentence for today?
Yes, I do. And realizing last week was pretty difficult.
It was kind of difficult.
Yes, with cuidado con el aire, which was the careful with the air.
Something a little shorter, easier.
Yes, and actually perfect for these days, which is the sentence is qué calor.
Oh, we can do that. Qué calor.
Qué calor.
Especially for like, you know, Koreans out there. Que is like, you know, sesame seed. Que.
Right, there you go.
Que calor.
Qué calor.
And it means like, 덥다.
너무 덥다.
너무 덥다. 너무 더워.
It's so hot. It's so hot. Yeah,
perfect. So all day we're going to say que calor.
Exactly. If you go out outside today, just say, hey, que calor.
Yes, got it. All right, let's talk about our first event.
Yes, and Catherine, I just have a question.
Yes.
Like from international food, like except Korean food, is there anything that you miss or like crave?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from California, LA girl, I miss the street food in terms of like truck food, like the tacos and burritos.
Right.
Like really good burritos and tacos. That's me though. Yeah.
Right.
I miss the pico de gallo, the salsa.
Nice.
I make it at home. It just doesn't have that
so
same
delicious.
kick. Yes, so good. Yes. Why?
Well, for those listeners who are like food lovers,
yes,
and we have the 29th Busan International Food Expo.
Ooh.
It's called BoFood.
BoFood?
BoFood.
Okay.
And this International Food Expo will take place tomorrow, Wednesday, the 21st of June, until Saturday, the 24th at Bexco. And the event has grown rapidly because of the support of companies and visitors and is gaining recognition as the largest food industry expo outside of Seoul.
Yay.
And this expo will feature a variety of taste testing events and, of course, with food and beverages, as well as equipment and products actually used in processing plants. And there's also going to be an experience area to try new products that have yet to be released and are expected to become trendsetters and popular in the food industry.
Yes.
So what can we find? There's going to be around 900 booths from 400 different companies, and the people can enjoy a food tour and a coffee tour, including many types of bakeries and desserts.
Yeah, this is so good. Right up the alley of many people, I'm sure.
If you go there, you have to be with an empty stomach, for sure. So this is a great opportunity to enjoy a great variety of international foods and drinks, which will be provided during this weekend at this expo. So for more details, you can go to www.bofood.kr, or you can type in Korean the Busan Gukje Shikpum Daejeon.
Oh, yes.
So you can find that. Do you enjoy these food
anything related with food? I'm so there. So
Right.
What do you enjoy? What do you miss?
Oh, I really miss the olives.
Olives.
I really miss olives.
I love olives too.
Because, here in Busan, we have great restaurants and great variety. And I don't miss that Spanish food so much. Like, I can still find paella and gambas.
Gambas.
Tapas
Yes.
and sangria. But actually, the olives, I do miss that. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we had more like Greek restaurants.
Right. There should be more of those. It's true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yes.
And as you know, Catherine, here in Busan, we have many beautiful traditional and modern streets, and sometimes we find very interesting alleyways.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes we can get lost in these alleyways. And for the Busan citizens, this week we can enjoy a beautiful outdoor tour of the Busan Golmok Festival.
Ooh,
which
the
is
alleyway
festival.
Yes.
And this is in collaboration with the tourism organization of Busan, which has announced the upcoming 2023 Busan Alley Festival, which is going to be held every weekend from now until July the 2nd. Now, it already started this weekend in Jeonpo, but there are different locations that our listeners and viewers can enjoy. And the main theme for this festival is the taste and night of Busan's alleys.
Ooh.
So still related to food.
Can't get away from the food. Yes.
So what can we enjoy? For example, this weekend at the Bongsan Village in Yeongdo, we'll show Busan's captivating night view and also provide opportunities for alley tours and blueberry harvesting.
Oh, I love blueberries.
So nice. And then the following weekend, in 2 weeks, you can find at the Mangmi Alley, which will host the Mangmi Art and Book Festival, including a book market, play market for children, and the Busan Gourmet Table. So everything related to food. Offering Busan-themed lunchboxes, craft beer, and traditional liquors.
Wow, they're going all fancy.
So when can we when does
enjoy this? Right.
Enjoy this? As I mentioned before, the Jumpo already happened this weekend, but we can enjoy this weekend, June 24th and the 25th, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Where?
In the Bongsan village in Yeongdo, Yeongdo-gu. And in July the 1st and 2nd in Mangmi Alleyway in Suyonggu.
Right, and like Yeongdo is like so hot. They have so many cafes now. Like
It's becoming so popular.
Right,
it's
right.
really, really great. And the view is amazing from that area. So.
Expect crowds is all I can say. Yes.
Exactly, yes. And very interestingly, Catherine, actually this event is promoted just through SNS. So they don't have like their own website. It's all done through Instagram. So if you want more information,
you
go through their account. It's the Busan Ali Festival 2023 at Busan_Golmok, GOLMOK _festival. Or you can type in Korean, of course, the Busan Golmok Festival, and you can find that in. So
all right,
interesting.
This one sounds like a lot of fun because I love exploring like all the nooks and crannies, all the alleyways.
Exactly.
So interesting to really get a feel of the history and flavor of Busan, I think.
I agree with that. I think that Busan has of course modern is very modern city, but these alleyways take you back like 40, 50 years back, and it's very interesting it's the only place where you can do some bargaining sometimes.
Ooh.
You can bargain the price sometimes.
I can't imagine like Roberto saying like, 깎아주세요. 조금만. Yes.
Sometimes they accept.
Sometimes, right. Yes, sometimes. What's next?
Well, for our next event is very interesting. We have a fusion between cinema and climate change.
Oh, we were just talking about climate change with our expert. Yes,
exactly. Very important these days, climate change, and is through the notions of what they call slow cinema and slow science.
Oh.
And I'm referring to the Busan MOCA Cinemedia Climate of Cinema. Sounds very interesting.
Yes.
And this is going to go from now until August the 6th at the Busan Museum of Contemporary Art. And it holds what is called the Climate of Cinema, Isle, the Planet, and Post-Context Zone. So what it does is this Climate of Cinema dives into the intersection between ecology and political economy and history of film. And it entangles between the climate crisis and the climate history and climate of cinema through the notions of what we mentioned before, slow cinema and slow science.
So what exactly is slow cinema?
Exactly. Many viewers or listeners will think,
what is slow cinema? Right, like watching a movie slowly? Like what is that? Right.
Putting it pause.
Yeah, pause. What is that?
So slow cinema is a series of films that is defined by its use of the long takes.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Got
There's
it.
many movies that have the long takes and enjoy the view, enjoy the music of it, and which are commonly found in the works by prominent figures such as Tsai Ming-liang, Leif Diaz, and Chantal Akerman, all of whom are featured in this exhibition.
Okay.
Now, these filmmakers use cinematic forms and rhythms to explore a range of themes, from gender to religion and politics, encouraging viewers to engage in this introspection.
Okay.
Now, that is the slow cinema, so the long takes. But slow science recognizes the Earth's ecosystem is unsustainable and seeks to find new ways to address this issue. So that requires a collaboration between artists, scientists, philosophers, and others. So in this exhibition, the effort to address the climate crisis through crucial means and will be explored through the cinema and media.
I see.
So it's enjoy the cinema, but at the same time, like, the notion of we have a problem with the climate.
Right. No, I totally get it now. You thoroughly explained it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
So this at this event, there's going to be some works featured by, including Aral, which is a fishing in invisible sea. There's going to be Shari Sura, which is a love story, 7 Islands and a Metro, The Crow, Habitat, Leo Island, and many different types of cinema and movies, which all express the dark ecology through cinematic forms.
Yes.
So very interesting ongoing festival in this city, and for those interested in both film and the environment, you can go to www.busan.go.kr/MOCA, MOCA_EN if you want in English, or _KR if you want it in Korean.
Sure.
Or you can type in Korean the Busan MOCA Cinemedia in your browser, and you can know more about this.
Sounds good. And
Very
thanks for the thorough explanation on that one.
I hope everybody understood.
Yes, I think we have time for one more.
All right.
Yes.
So once I turn up the page,
Can you get to the next page? Okay.
it got stuck there.
Oh, it's one of those days today. Yes.
Now, this one we'll mention very, very quickly. And, before in this program, we mentioned some food festivals and wine festivals, but also microbrewing is becoming very popular here in Busan. And there's many different locations that they have microbrewing, I think it is.
Yes.
All right. And here we have, this week we have the Eastern Busan Brewery Expedition. And this event is similar to a pub tour, or sometimes called a crawl.
Yes.
Of the Eastern Brewery Expedition for many beer lovers. And actually Busan is one of the South Korea's biggest craft beer hubs, with many local breweries thriving in different locations throughout the city, like Gwangali and other locations.
Sure.
So what happens is this is a tour that goes around several pubs during 10 days and has the opportunity to try handmade beers that can only be tasted in Eastern Busan. So how do you do that? You purchase a ticket in advance.
Okay.
And you'll be able to get a discount on craft beer of up to 30% on weekdays and 20% on the weekends. Now, this is done through your mobile phone. You can purchase it. You get like a small stamp. And then you can show that in different locations around
Got it. That's why it's like expedition. You're like going to all these different places.
Around.
Got it.
So this is a regular event for 6 months, starting now until November the 19th. Now, there are up to 6 brewing pubs participating in this event. Of course, I'm not going to mention the names on air.
Can't do that.
We cannot do that.
Yes.
But for sure, if people want to participate, you'll be able to experience a variety of local beers brewed right here in Busan. So if you want to try that, also as an SNS festival. So for more information, you can go to Naver or any other search engine. You can type in the brewery Tap Hamdae. Tap Hamdae.
Yes.
In your search engine. Thank you. And you can find out more. So.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us. We went through such a variety of like food and coffee and 골목, and then cinema, so science, and then this beer as well.
So.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to next week, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll
All
see you
right.
next week. Thank you
and
so much.
what's it again? Que calor.
Que calor.
Yes. Thank you, Roberto.
Que calor. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Right. This was Curated of Busan with Roberto. Oh, we're getting so many messages. I miss taco. Lots of está bien caliente. Lots of 오늘 점심은 타코입니다. Did I get you salivating? Yes. And I have to say, I made over the weekend the trend on SNS right now is the burger taco combo with a tortilla. I made it. It was so good. Look on your, SNS. Look up the recipe. It's so easy to make. I highly recommend it if you want some homemade burger/taco. All right, for our final song, this is it, right, PD님? Okay, 싸구려 커피 by 장기하와 얼굴들. Enjoy. Bye, everybody.
미지근해 적잖이 속이 쓰려온다 눅눅한 비닐 장판에 발바닥이 쩍 달라붙었다 떨어진다 이제는 아무렇지 않아 바퀴벌레 한 마리쯤 슥 지나가도 무거운 매일 아침엔 다만 그저 약간의 기침이 멈출 생각을 않는다 축축한 이불을 갠다 비겁대는 문을 열고 밖에 나가본다 아직 덜 갠 하늘이 너무 가까워 숨쉬기가 쉽질 않다 수만 번 본 것만 같다 어지러워 쓰러질 정도로 익숙하기만 하다 남은 것도 없이 텅 빈 나를 잠근다 싸구려 커피를 마신다 미지근해 적잖이 속이 쓰려온다 눅눅한 비닐 장판에 발바닥이 쩍하고 달라붙었다가 떨어진다 뭐 한 몇 년간 세숫대야에 고여있는 물마냥 그냥 완전히 썩어가지고
이거는 뭐 감각이 없어. 비가 내리면 처마 밑에서 쭈그리고 앉아서 멍하니 그냥 가만히 보다 보면은 이거는 뭔가 아니다 싶어. 비가 그쳐도 희금으로 죽죽한 저게 하늘이라고 머리 위를 뒤덮고 있는 건지, 저거는 뭔가 하늘이라고 하기에는 뭔가 너무 낮게 머리카락에 거의 닿게 조금만 뛰어도 정수리를 뿡 하고 지을 것 같은데, 벽장 속 제습제는 벌써 꽉 차 있으나 마나 목이 때려잡다 번진 피가 묻은 거울을 볼 때마다 약간 놀라. 제멋대로 구부러진 칫솔 같다. 이빨을 닦다 보면
지글지글 움직인대.
누가?
척추라인에 맞춰서 움직이.